Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's District Administration web seminar entitled Education Leaders Share Their Secret Sauce, Leveraging the Power of Video in K-12, which is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor, Cloud12. Before we get started, I would like to share with you just a few housekeeping items first. For technical support, please use the chat panel on the right side of your screen. Then please select my name, which is Stephen Blackburn, and type your message if you're having any technical issues. If you don't have computer speakers or if you prefer to listen privately, please dial the phone number and access code that I will be posting in the chat window in a few moments, so you can expect to see that. We will also be welcoming any questions you have today with a live Q&A session at the end of the presentation. To submit a question, please use the Q&A panel at the bottom right side of your screen and send your questions to all the panelists, which is the default option. If you don't see the chat or the Q&A panels for whatever reason, look again to the right side of your screen and click the expand triangle button, which is directly in front of the panel name, to make sure you have access to it. Also, something important to note, last thing, if you would like to access the web seminar at a later time, everyone who is registered and who is attending today will receive an email with a link to the slide and an archive recording. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you all one of our speakers today, Julie Mccarty. Julie, she is the Vice President over at Cloud12. It's great to have you with us, Julie.
Thank you, Stephen. Awesome. Hi, everyone. We're really glad to have you with us today. I am Julie Mccarty, like Stephen said, Vice President of Education Strategy with Cloud12. We're a classroom video company. Our cornerstone product is one unobtrusive, always ready, small camera device with a powerful software platform. We're made specifically for schools and for teachers. Our solution will not be the focus for today's discussion, but I wanted to let you know what makes us qualified to bring this seminar to you today. We do have a terrific discussion on deck about leveraging video for better teaching and learning in K-12 classrooms. Each of our panelists today are practitioners. They're currently using video in their areas of expertise for various reasons and through varying ways. They're leaders. They're innovators. They are change makers that are on the front lines of teaching and learning, probably like most of you in our audience panel are as well. So without further ado, I am super excited to introduce to you today's panel. With over 20 years in education, with us, Ms. Latoya Campbell. She is currently serving as Assistant Principal over Curriculum and Instruction at Gadsden City High School in Gadsden, Alabama. A doctoral candidate, current doctoral candidate, Ms. Stephanie Stevens. She leads the charge of Kennesaw State University's I Teach program out of Kennesaw, Georgia. She has a deep passion for instructional technology and leadership. And with over 25 years in education, Ms. Kelly Ziegler, she's currently serving as the Director of Professional Learning with Liberty County Schools in Hinesville, Georgia. Ladies, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. We can't wait to learn from you. This conversation will hit on hot topics as we discuss the evolving uses and how to make the most of classroom video and how to make it effective. We look forward to learning as our panelists share successes, but I've also asked them to be sure that they are, brutally honest through the trials and the tribulations that they've experienced as well. It's our goal today that everyone walks away from this seminar armed with information on ways that you can use classroom video to support educator growth, to support all learners, to envision how classroom video use can decrease the lost social interactions we're dealing with right now with distance learning, and to assess the overall return on investment with all the ways classroom cameras can transform the learning environment. So before I turn it over for our panelists to dazzle you with their knowledge and their experiences, I'd like to take a few moments to share some data and information because it will support the case for today's discussion. So teachers want to be the best at their craft. They want to be the best for their students. But we've learned from a Smart Brief education study that only 30% of teachers felt they were getting the feedback that they need in order to make actionable changes in their practice. And 38% of school leaders feel the evaluation system they have in place has great enough impact for those teachers to actually change their practices. I'd say that's pretty alarming considering the amount of money that districts spend on professional development. So I challenge you to think about this correlation today. If only a third feel like they're getting what they need in order to improve, should we keep doing things the same way? Because we also know that 90% of teachers surveyed in that same study felt that recording their instruction would improve their practice. Visible evidence is key for self-reflection. So we just talked about visible support for teachers to learn and grow. And there are similar things to discuss concerning how students receive and assimilate information differently as well. Garner's multiple intelligences theory identified that some of us learn best through linguistic side of things, others are more auditory, others more kinesthetic, and others require a combination of all of these things. So numerous research studies are beginning to emerge, showing video use in the classroom to be greatly beneficial to a student's academic performance. Because video combines so many different kinds of data, sounds, images, motions, and text, learning can be adjusted. So it's not just narrowing in on one learning style when you've got a whole group of students. So why don't we use it more? And when we do use video in our lessons, most of the time, we're relying on videos from the internet. Their voices, motions, images, text from outside of our classrooms. They're not our teaching voice, not our methods, not our explanations. But here's a bigger key right now. It's not the comfort of seeing that classroom that the student is emotionally connected to. So now we've talked about improving the human aspect through video. Let's shift to transforming the teaching and learning environment. This data that I'm sharing with you is drawn from Georgia and North Carolina districts that have been using classroom cameras. Data has shown decreases from 40 to 70% consistently year over year after the implementation of classroom cameras. Prior to our current climate, students spent 88% of their school day inside of classrooms, which is the least likely place so far in a school building to have a camera. And also, according to a Youth Truth survey and Edutopia, 33% of students report being bullied at school. And of those, 34% say it's happening in the classroom. So not to be an alarmist, but based on findings from the National Center for Education Statistics in 2018, 220,000 teachers were physically attacked in 1 year, and 30% of teachers will be falsely accused of misconduct over their career. If we improve the physical and emotional security of the teacher and the students, learning improves. But asking teachers to remember to do all of these things, record or maybe stream or getting on Zoom calls and getting on all these, video conferencing, while they're also trying to focus on their content that they're teaching, that's asking a lot. You've got to remember to charge devices, remember to press record, press stop, download, upload, all of these different pieces of the puzzle. So we're going to keep talking really a lot about the different ways of leveraging video because it has so many powerful uses. But what if it comes with such the strain of these major pain points? So I'm going to be asking our experts today specifically, how are they addressing those? How are they overcoming so that teachers can keep experiencing the benefits? So without further ado, panelists, are you guys ready to get this party started?
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right. Awesome. So ladies, I'm going to start with a pretty easy question for you. Do Do you guys have a preference? I think, is it okay, Ms. Campbell, if we start with you? Ms. Ziegler will go to you, and Ms. Stevens will finish up with you?
That's fine.
Awesome. All right. So first question is kind of a two-parter. How are you or your institution currently using classroom video, and about how long have you been using it for that purpose?
Thanks, Julie, for the invitation today. Our school has been in partnership with K-12 for approximately 4 years. One of our major uses for classroom video would be the opportunity for students to go back and have an opportunity for reteaching when they're not in the classroom, or they're absent, or there's a concept that they just didn't get in the classroom that day. It's also been an excellent tool for us to use for RTI. And with the age now where we're dealing with COVID and we have probably 50% of our students here on campus and 50% of students at home, video has proven to be a vital piece of getting education to our students, not just putting them on a program and letting them go their way.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. Kelly?
Our system originally purchased it, like you said, for more classroom security and classroom management uses, but it quickly evolved so quickly once teachers could see that it wasn't the catchy Big Brother type thing. And we're using it a lot for teacher effectiveness and improvement. Our teachers really embraced how they could use the tool to reflect on themselves and their practices by going back and looking at those videos, starting them some brag folders, and really using that as a tool to embrace their teaching and improve their teaching methods and styles.
So I think it's so great to hear about what's happening inside of K-12 classrooms. That's obviously where I started my career, but now I spend time in higher education and really in coaching teachers and school leaders who are in the K-12 space. And so video for us in the last 6 months has proven to be the way that we do work, whether it's through live synchronous video meetings or through pre-recorded lessons, trainings, and professional development. Something that I am seeing for sure is that higher education seems to have been leveraging the power of video for a little bit longer than K-12. Certainly it's pretty commonplace now to go across many campuses and see integrated video systems within classrooms. And whether or not those are used and then used effectively is seen to, kind of vary, just like it would be in K-12. But in the course of the last, I would say 2 years, I see the power of video in K-12 and the use of video in K-12 really growing as we think more about blended learning. Now, we were all forced into it 6 months ago, and blended and hybrid and high flex and multimodal learning are really what we do now. But we've got several schools and districts that we're supporting right now that are trying to solve for what I'll call simultaneous dual modality teaching, where some students have returned face-to-face, others remain at home, but there's an expectation that all receive instruction live. And that has been something that I think without the power of video, we wouldn't even have thought as a way to solve for what's happening right now. So I'm excited to see it growing. I still think there is so much room to integrate more effectively and to really see what else we can push out from this experience.
Ladies, that's awesome. Thank you. Across the board, you guys have such knowledge and depth of use and in varying ways. So my next question for you is, what would you say is something that you think maybe surprises you the most or has surprised you the most about trying to use video with classroom teachers or in your building?
I would have to say it would have to be reluctancy on the part of teachers. Initially, when we came into partnership with K-12, we started off with 15 teachers, and we hand-selected some of those teachers because we put out feeders to have teachers volunteer, and many of them did not. So my former principal and I sat down and strategically placed those cameras within the building. Many of the teachers felt like it was an I gotcha thing, or it was punishment, or you're targeting or singling me out. And it wasn't. You know, we had a reason for every one that we chose. So in the beginning, there were some teachers that felt like we were spying on them. That was probably the biggest shock to me. And luckily, we have had some turnaround, and the teachers do see the benefit of it. But I have to be honest, I still have a couple of pockets where I'm struggling, but I'm going to continue plugging at it and show those teachers the real difference it can make in their classroom.
Okay, and I'm about on the same boat as Latoya. That's kind of how we started out in Liberty County. We started out with small pods in our middle and high schools with the cameras, and the teachers all felt like it was a system where we were going to be looking at them, targeting them, because the cameras are going into specific rooms. But since then, our system has grown, and we've added more. And the teachers, like I said earlier, really have embraced using those cameras in their classroom, not only for they know it's for their safety and security and their well-being. We've solved a lot of, issues that in the past could not have been solved if those cameras had not been there. But then they've also seen it as great instructional tools that they can use for instruction, remediation, reteaching our students. They have some pre-recorded lessons ahead of time and use those when they weren't going to be in the classroom. They can be there anyway for our students. And then again, like I said earlier, too, that self-reflection tool where they are sharing their videos with each other and their peers across the district when they clip those videos, and they can really ask us for feedback as well. We can sometimes do this without stepping into the classroom and really get a good feel for what's going on with the teachers and give them some good feedback and support.
It's such a good point, Kelly. And in our role as coaches, it's really important for us that we have feedback. Thinking back to my own teacher evaluation walkthroughs, an administrator shows up in your classroom, and despite their best efforts, though some make less of an effort than others to be disruptive, like all kids are eyes on, there's keys and a walkie-talkie and a clipboard and a this and a that, and it really does change the dynamic and the spirit of what's happening, and it's pretty disruptive to the environment. And for us as coaches, we worked a really long time to build relationships with the teachers we're supporting, so that there's trust there. And I think that that's something that's been surprising to me, is that in our current reality, many of the teachers and districts that we're working with are actually now asking, well, can we record this and send it to you? We don't have good pockets of time, right? Time's this 4-letter word in education. No one has enough of it. We don't have time to stop what we're doing and then sit down for this debrief and sit down for these conversations. Can we record ourselves and send it to you? But they're doing it sometimes with their phone or with, recording a Teams meeting of themselves or whatever it is, because they don't have the technology yet in their environment. And I think shocking for me, because I am a teacher, was a teacher, work with teachers, that they are asking now for more integrated video based on, Latoya and Kelly, both of you and your experiences. I absolutely understand and would feel maybe the same way at first if I didn't have a good rationale and understanding for why they were being included in my environment. And then also, when someone asks for it themselves and you can provide a solution, I think it does flip the script a little bit, right?
Stephanie, you are so correct. When everybody started to see these systems at work, it was like, well, how can I get one? And that would be so great. I'd love to have videos that I could upload to my Google Classroom for students. So definitely. And those teachers that want to really improve their craft, they enjoy this because you can go back and critique yourself. You don't have to wait on somebody to come by and do an observation to tell you where your strengths and weaknesses lie. And I think that's been one of my favorite things, because I'm the type of administrator, when I go to a classroom, I want to participate. So it's a hard time, pulling all that in and sitting on my hands. So I love to be able to have a video and observe what teachers are doing in their classrooms.
Y'all are so both right, too. And I know how many times have we left a classroom and the teacher was like, if you had been there 5 minutes afterward, you missed the best part of the lesson.
Every time.
That video clip has been there for us to, for them to send to us, their administrators, they've got their brag folders, as we call it, just, one day go back and say, hey, these are some great things to put in for their evaluation process to kind of boost them up, to kind of help, make them more effective themselves. They really embraced it.
And I think the depth of feedback, right? We push teachers all the time to consider feedback as part of how they instruct really effectively. And I think, based in Georgia, our teacher evaluation system is not dissimilar to anyone else's in the nation. It's a rating system. And at the end of the day, it's incumbent upon the person rating a teacher to give good feedback. And sometimes you get that and many times you don't, just frankly, based on, again, time constraints, et cetera. And so I think having a relationship with yourself that you can be reflective and with peers who are non-evaluative that you could share video with and ask for that feedback. I think the feedback is so, so valuable. Certainly as we look at, the partnership philosophy from Jim Knight, who's, an instructional coaching wizard. And I joke sometimes that I should have a fan club t-shirt. They just don't make them for nerdy things like this. But I think that he would also advocate for this idea of partnership, not only that I have something to learn, but I have something to gain in that partnership with other teachers.
Yeah. And that's a great point that you just made, because so many times I'll go into a classroom and I'll see things and I'll go, oh my gosh, Mrs. Such and Such would love to do that, or Mr. Such and Such, this would tie in so well with his curriculum. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to share those videos with teachers that don't always have that opportunity to go and visit their peers to see what they're doing in their classrooms. I think it's an opportunity for everyone on the staff to grow.
Yeah. Exactly. And we said that same thing too, Latoya. I mean, the peer observations, they can observe each other when they don't have to ever leave their classroom and miss instructional time to observe each other, whether it may be in the same building or across the district.
Yes.
And I try to tell my new teachers that, and we've used reflection video for many years before Cloud 12, and in the mentor program, and my mentor teacher program, and that was one thing even the mentor said, I grew from helping my mentor and watching them and their videos. Mm-hmm. And even the new teachers are like, I got so much out of myself watching my own video, and really, didn't realize I did that or how I could improve on specific things. The teachers really embrace that self-reflection. They really do. It's surprisingly well.
I've heard some really neat things in that conversation. We hear a lot about, or at least as educators and as teachers, we talk a lot about an aha moment for a student. And as I'm listening to the three of you share your experiences, I'm hearing that it's as important for teachers and educators to feel that aha moment, but also to be able to see their own aha moment just as much as it is for students. And I think what I'm gathering from what you guys are sharing right now are different ways for an aha moment to be internalized for an individual or shared with an administrator for, to go into their observation portfolios and things like that, but also to be shared with a teammate, right? Ms. Campbell, you mentioned that. I think I tend to use the terms unleash the power, right? If we can learn from each other, that's really powerful, isn't it?
That's the best professional development that you can provide. Oftentimes we'll outsource those things when we have competent and extremely knowledgeable individuals right here in the building. I know some of the most powerful professional developments that I've been in have been the PLCs that I've participated in or even led, just having that environment where they can just be honest. And I feel like through video, it's easy to be yourself when no one is watching.
Exactly.
And, the camera's there and they're watching, but a lot of the times the teachers get so into what they're doing, they don't remember that it's there. They just know they have a mic around their neck and their voice isn't as strained at 3 o'clock. But just to be able to have those times, and you can't predict when the students they're gonna have their aha moment, or you're gonna just do something that's gonna be so fabulous. But hey, you've captured that, and guess what? I can share that with the struggling teacher down the hall. I can share that with the new teacher, or I can share that with my admin, so that it can be shared with other people. I think that is the biggest thing is that word share.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you guys this, and I think, Stephanie, I'd like for you to start us out with this one. You've mentioned especially that almost like dual modal that is a lot of people's ask right now, trying to figure it all out. But what do you see as differences between instruction via video conferencing and instruction via a recorded video? Do you see any differences there?
Yeah.
And how do you see each being used?
Sure, absolutely. I think there's a time and a place for everything, right? And I think as a teacher first and then an instructional technologist second, I think it's important to keep those two things in the right priority order. And unfortunately, what happens when we're forced into situations as we are right now, where we have kids coming at different times in different ways from different places, but all need the same kind of supports, it becomes a question of equity. And so for me, I always kick back to the path of least resistance for students and the path of least resistance for teachers. When we can get them on the same page and feeling comfortable in the environment, the quality of teaching, the quality of learning are going to go up. And so I think for sure a live, again, Google Meet, not called Hangout anymore, a live Teams meeting, a live Zoom meeting, all have places. And I think the power of technology in this instance is a one-to-one, but I don't mean one-to-one in the traditional sense. I mean one student with one teacher in a co-planning conversation that's student-led. And when we can leverage those live video tools, conferencing tools for that kind of interaction, I think there's great power in it. Those tools were never meant to be broadcast, though, right? Those tools were never meant to capture natural teaching and learning environments. And so they're clunky and they require a lot. To your point in the opening, Julie, I can't tell you the amount of time lost when we think about lost instructional time on trying to launch meetings, make sure people can see your screen, make sure the students in the class are not logging on to the same meeting because it'll pull the bandwidth and the network down around them, making sure that everyone has the chat. You ask a question, can you hear me? Can you not hear me? It's like the worst form of like Zoom bingo that we've all been joking about for the last 6 months, but so much time is lost just getting to a functional point where the lesson can begin. Where instead, a system like what Cloud12 offers really it's just seamless. It begins to evaporate into the atmosphere, and that's what you want out of technology. You don't want it to be seen, heard. You don't want it to be disruptive, but you want it always doing its job. And what you hire video to do for you is to provide that equitable access so that kids don't have to play the teacher lottery anymore about, I caught her on a good period, or my period's full of crazy kids and I get distracted, or the teacher down the hall teaches this concept really well, but if I'm not lucky enough to have her as my teacher, I don't get to learn from her that concept. Well, we start to evaporate some of those things. And like I said, it all boils back down to equity. We can then start to look at how we can provide the very best opportunities for resources and experiences to all kids, regardless of the place that you're learning from, the teacher that you're rostered to, or the availability of technology that you have in your own system.
But that almost sounds like you're describing, are you describing almost like a database or a library, if you will, of recorded instruction that...
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the direction that I hear you.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely good for an on-the-fly live moment, but for me, the true power comes into play when we think about a repository of best-in-class teaching experiences, right? Of best-in-class delivery of mini lessons, of just-in-time direct instruction, right? Direct instruction is not an evil word. I think in education, it gets a bad rap in the days of everybody gets their own way in their own way. And I'm an advocate for personalized learning. That's my focus in my dissertation. It's certainly not what I'm downplaying, but I do think we have to be clear about it. And that direct instruction can come just in time when students are really at a critical learning moment, when they're cognitively struggling, with a pre-banked version of the best-in-class lesson, the most effective way to maneuver through that learning hurdle. So yeah, it's a combination of all of those things. And I think a lot of us got thrown off, right, when we were thrust into this environment. But the work that's happening right now is not unlike the work we've been building and layering blocks out for many, many years. Certainly blended learning and hybrid learning have been implemented in some form or fashion in K-12 for the last 10 years almost. And so I think when folks say, I want multimodal or dual modal or simultaneous teaching, it's almost a step back, right? Then we're saying same way, same day teaching is the most effective. And sometimes it is, again, it's the path of least resistance. But wow, leveraging some of those pre-recorded, curated experiences is really powerful.
Yeah. Ladies, would you guys like to chime in and expand on that?
I would say, that's about the same thing for us in our district. Our district, we're one-to-one iPads pre-K through 12, and this school year we started out 100% virtually. Our teachers never stepped foot in the building, and they just came back less than a week ago. So our students were now also virtual and face-to-face. About 25% of our students remain virtual, and we have teachers teaching and recording their lessons at the same time with a Google Meets up, or, so they can answer questions, interact with their kids, but also those recorded lessons are then going to be dropped later on. So that, like, Stephanie's saying, we've got that library those kids can go back to in their learning management classes or their place in the classroom and pull those videos, because we don't know when they're going to be home or when's the best time for them to learn. And the type of learner, they may have to rewatch it or pause it, rewind it back, go over it again, and there's different things, and then we can share those videos with our peers as well, because my teaching style may be different than yours, and with our different learners and different teaching styles, we have a whole slew of teachers, our great teachers that can teach every kid. So those video libraries are very powerful in our district, and we're hoping to build on those more and just, keep forging through with this new territory that we're in education.
I think my viewpoint on this question depends on the factors that surround it. I guess back in March, when we were thrust into this new virtual environment that many teachers were not used to, didn't know how they were going to do it, the power of video was extremely important. We had some teachers that did that. They just took it by the horns and ran and did a great job. And we had some teachers that didn't. And we saw success with those teachers that went online, provided video, or they did meetings with their students. If I'm looking at a normal environment, quote unquote, what is normal in education, there are some students that having that library of videos does benefit. But I also don't want to forget those students that need that one-on-one for various reasons, not just an educational-wise. They need that one-on-one interaction with that teacher. And in those situations, video will help, but I think that teacher interaction and that ability to be personable is extremely important in those relationships. And I think in building those positive relationships with students, you're going to see a better academic output. So I can kind of see both sides of the coin with that. It just really does depend on the situation that we're in.
Right. Not a replacement necessarily, an enhancement.
Right. Exactly. We went one-to-one in 2015. And we required each teacher to have some type of blended format. Of course, I was a little partial to Google Classroom, but I had some people that held on to Edmodo. And I'm going to be honest, it was like pulling teeth, because I had teachers that wanted to do it their way. It didn't matter how trends were changing in education, how students were changing in education. They wanted to stay in the mode in which they've always done it. And just like Stephanie and Kelly stated before, you have to address the different learning modalities. Everybody does not learn the same. It's kind of like being in math and you're teaching students how to do the Pythagorean theorem. And the algorithm that you're teaching them may be one way, and they've come up with an algorithm that gets them to the same point. We don't want to stifle stifle kids in doing that.
Latoya, you're so right. My child's one of those children that need that face-to-face, not the video all the time. So we do have, I mean, yes, we look at that too with our children, and that's also very important. I mean, to meet those needs, I agree. And I think a lot of it with the video out there and the different ways that we can approach it is great, because I don't think any of this, I think the way we're teaching now and the way we're looking at things now, it's not going to change. I don't think we're going to revert back. I think we're just going to keep moving forward.
I agree. And I would just
moving.
Yes, and I would just say, too, I mean, I want all the options, right? I want everything available to me that technology can allow for, and I want to be able to use myself as the teacher as the biggest lever of change in whatever environment I'm in. Something that I found interesting, I teach graduate classes at the university, and I'm running some students, I'll call them students, but they're teachers, through an endorsement program right now in personalized learning. It's the first group to go through this endorsement program in the country, actually, because Georgia's the first state to offer this endorsement program. And so it's really exciting. And something that's incumbent within that course is that each of them meet with me one-on-one to co-plan for each module. And so that's not disruptive to me. I'm used to teaching 168th graders every day and meeting and checking in with them, right? But for other academics, other professors who are used to having a really small course load and really teaching pretty much asynchronously 100% of the time, the power of video in those interactions to be able to customize, build connections, build rapport, answer very specific learning gaps or hurdles that they need some help with, and then for them to take the power over of saying, well, here's how I'd like to demonstrate my mastery. Is that okay with you? That facilitated conversation of co-planning could only happen for me through video and through the power of video, because these learners are all over the state and they're certainly not climbing into a classroom at Kennesaw. So I just think it's so powerful in so many different ways. And I agree with you. Always I'm after those one-on-one interactions, those relationship building times where I can really diagnose and then support the growth of whatever the learner, whether it be an 8-year-old in second grade or a 38-year-old in a master's class, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think you guys have rounded out and talked about a lot of different ways that using video and using classroom video can impact student achievement in the varying ways. We've touched a little bit, I think I've heard you guys touch a little bit on the different professional development ways that you use it. I've heard a little bit about observation. I've heard a little bit about, asking for shared recordings. I've heard you talk a little bit about reflection. But before we move on, we're going to be close to the Q&A section after just a couple more questions. Would anyone like to expand, or have we missed anything that you guys experienced or you've learned as far as using video and using classroom video in a professional learning model?
It's just a great way to showcase those model teachers. Like we say, it's hard for teachers to get out of the classroom. We want them to not miss that instructional time with their students, and they don't want to miss that instructional time with their students, even though they want to observe their peers. So having those videos for great instructional practices, for modeling different things, whether it's how to teach specific content, we can share those at any point in time with our teachers by creating that video library. And I'll say our teachers the ones that I've asked have been very open and like, great, sure, I've got this awesome video. I don't mind. I mean, and they're happy to do it. They won't, and as I call them, it's my superstars. I want y'all to be able to share those with us, so we can help other teachers, to broaden their perspective and different instructional strategies and stuff. So my hope is to grow a very good instructional PD library, so we can keep our teachers in our classrooms, but yet have some good things and models for our PLCs, whether it's our district PLCs or in our school PLCs too to use.
And I think that's the most important thing is, when you have good teachers that are passionate about what they do, they want to grow. And in that, you have student achievement. And that ability for students and teachers to have those videos there for them. Think about students, and I think about math a lot because I'm not a math person. I taught English. if I had the opportunity as a student to be able to go and pull those things when I'm studying or I didn't grasp a concept, man, my life would have been totally different. You all may not even know me now. But, you know, we have that now. And I think about if I had a classroom camera system when I was a teacher, man, this just would have taken me to an entirely new plateau. I mean, teachers are really blessed right now. They are really blessed, and I don't know if they understand that. But just like Stephanie and Kelly said, this is teaching. This is education now. And I think we've made such great strides and progress that there is no going back. We have to remember that in order to gain that interest from a student, we're going to have to get on their level in some way. These kids are savvy. They know way more about technology than we do. We have to pique their interest. We have to have that curiosity so we can have those productive struggles where students want to learn and they want to take that ownership. And video is a great way to do that. I encourage teachers to let them, you know, participate in class so that they see themselves. What better way for students to learn than to learn from each other?
I know I'm not part of the panel, but I often tell my own personal story when I'm chatting with people. I did teach in a classroom, and I had a traditional security camera for 5 of my 10 years when I was teaching. But to your exact point, it did me no good other than, yes, I knew it was there. Yes, I knew that, you know, if I ever needed anything, but I wasn't even sure who to go to even ask, you know. So the fact that what you guys are all describing is how teachers have the ability to have it at their own fingertips means that they are taking that ownership of their own craft improvement and their own skill improvement. So that's my personal little 2 cents that I share because it went directly with your point.
I'll just end also my comment by saying 100% this is about professionalism and the way that teachers are provided with tools, not provided with another layer of oversight and accountability, right? This is a growth metric. It's an opportunity. It's an access that they didn't have before. So much of education is a missed high five when it comes to the PR campaign, right? Like it's a different story when you say, hey, we're putting in this camera in your classroom so that we can look at everything you're doing and catch you when you're wrong. Versus, hey, you have access now to choose your own recordings, share those samples with peers, get feedback, live stream, do all of these amazing things. And in the background, the sub-level bonus is that there's some safety and security and oversight should anything ever occur, right? It's a complete flipping of the script. So I think if we keep ourselves in that posture of being more professional than we even feel comfortable being professional to teachers, which is a field that's been under-professionalized so many years, that it really starts to unlearn for people this condition of sort of a deficit mindset, and then they start to view it as an asset. So that's where I've seen it really shift.
I think that's an important point, and I did see we've started to get a couple of Q&A questions come in. I know Stephen's going to take the reins for that in just a little bit, but there was that type of question about, well, if we're putting that out there for teachers or we're asking them to record themselves or we're providing them with tools, you know, don't you want to lay that groundwork of the messaging first? You know, absolutely. That's directly to your point, Stephanie, that it is however we position it, right? It is here are these tools and here are all the benefits that you can get from them. So that leads me into, I'm going to kind of merge 2 questions into one. And so you ladies can pick which one is most applicable towards your area of expertise. I'd like to know what you would say maybe the biggest obstacle that you have had to overcome in terms of either asking or using video, things like that, or what is the biggest obstacle that you've had to work with teachers to overcome? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so take your pick.
I would have to say it's the helping teachers overcome an obstacle. And I hate to seem to keep beating a subject into the ground, but it goes back to that reluctancy and not being able to see the true benefits of what that camera has to offer: instruction, classroom management, professional development. I think the biggest issue that I've had is showing teachers how to get out of their own way so that they can, number one, put students first, and number two, work to perfect your craft. This is a twofold thing. If they could just get out of their own way and see the benefits of the entire process, it would be phenomenal. It would be a total cultural shift in this building, and that would be something that I would be over the moon about. So yeah, it's definitely got to be reluctancy. And if either of you ladies have any ideas of how I can overcome that, that would be great. Like I said, I still have a couple of isolated pockets, but they're small. And luckily for me, I have the perfect classroom to show how powerful those systems are. One of our teachers who just was having a lot of problems, and she turned out to be the person that used that system with the most fidelity every day. If something's going wrong, Ms. Campbell, I need help with this. Did you know about this? How can I do this? And you talking about somebody that, I mean, total turnaround, and become one of the best teachers in this building. And I do believe it was all because of her having that system and having those videos that she depended on so that they would be available for her students.
I think, Latoya, one thing that helped our teachers is when we implemented it fully in our high schools, and then, it's still in pockets in our middle schools, I had those site-based academic specialists work with their teachers and PLCs just to incorporate monthly reflection time, to make, almost not force them, but say, hey, I want you to pull videos for reflection and use those in your PLC discussions. And that really helped our teachers start to see that it was a good starting point for them. It was something that they could embrace and really benefit from, and that changed a lot of the mindset. Here in our district, we have a lot of turnover rate. We're right next to a military installation, so we are constantly updating teachers. You can ask Julie how many teachers did I have to move around or change on our camera list this year. So we're having to constantly retrain teachers on just about anything, and not just, using Cloud 12, but anything in our district. So that's always when we try to, incorporate that training and that professional development, we really, we're cheerleaders for it. But our teachers, like you said, we found those model teachers that really can be helped for boosting others. And I'll say one of my biggest obstacles is I want it in all schools. It's not in all schools right now, and I want it in all schools because I could do so much more with it if it was in my elementary schools, and I would have a bigger tool to use. And I would just say, I think with our teachers' obstacle is time. I know time is always an obstacle with anything in education, and it's just, with Cloud 12, that video is set up to pre-record already, where you don't have to think about hitting that record button every day or at the start of every planet or instructional time. So it's already recording. It's just taking them time to go back and pull that recording and get those clips to pull out for those instructional portions of those mini lessons to then upload. It's just, like we said, time.
And I think in the beginning, buy-in was so important to me. I'm one of those type of administrators, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So our conference room across from the main office where most leadership team meetings are held, we feel like that's the classroom for administrators. Right. We had a camera system placed in that room. So that was my classroom. And I enjoyed it so much being able to model for them. I think that's important, too, when we're introducing new things and programs, is to be able to model for them and to just show them the benefits.
Right.
I think that's important, having that buy-in. Mm-hmm.
That was me. Every training that we did in the county, you can ask Julie, I was there at every one. I started off with the benefits, not this is why we're doing it, but these are the benefits for you. This is what's going to help you in your classroom. And they really were like, oh, okay, I see it's not just that watch me system. It's not like that. You know, I was like, you know, we don't have time for that. I'm like you said the other day. We don't have time to sit and watch videos all day. No.
I was just thinking that I don't have the hours in my day to sit and watch your camera. If I'm sitting and watching your camera, I'm watching you because I want to see you at work.
Right.
And I want to participate in this discussion that I am so passionate about. That is why I want to watch you.
Right, yes.
And I would say obstacle from my perspective really is, you know, and you kind of hit on it, Kelly, being able to isolate the moments that a teacher has indicated are really important and momentous moments. I think over time, I know Julie and Jason and the crew are always making updates and improvements. And in the interim, having a little jot sheet, just like all good practitioners have, where they maybe take note of the time or of something that they want to reflect back on so that they can better isolate those things as the flow continues. That's certainly something that even in a Teams meeting, you know, in some of the districts we support who are Microsoft heavy, they're recording every Teams meeting because they're doing synchronous teaching. We're even coaching them to just make a small note of when you feel like there's something magical happening, right? That's a gut feeling when you're a teacher, that you feel like something's bubbling, that's good, you're in a good flow, you're feeling focused. And then you turn around, you're like, oh my goodness, I think that actually landed the way that I had intended it to, just to make note of the time that's happening and maybe a quick reflection of like, this felt good. Or I saw Jim look up and really have a funny little smirk on his face, like this was the aha moment for him. And so I like that, not only because it then helps them to better find and analog some of those moments, but also because I liked to be able to go back and remember how I felt when those things happen, right? All of us who have left the classroom can attest to that's the thing you miss the most, is getting that energy out of those teaching moments, which is why I put myself back in as many teaching moments as I can. But, you know, you miss that aha moment, you miss that feeling you get in your gut where you're like, this is actually what it was about. This is why I do what I do. And so I love having that little just reflective jot sheet, you know, next to you as you're teaching for the day.
I spent about 35 minutes a couple of weeks ago. I was kind of having a down moment, and I like to go visit classrooms when I feel that way. And I went through Google Classroom, and I started pulling up some videos. And one of my favorite history teachers here, he has the absolute best rapport with his students. I sat there and watched that video and learned so much. And I think the very next day I said, where are your videos? I need more. Like, I was really craving more of his classroom instructional videos. And I said, forget it. I said, how about tomorrow? I'm going to go hang out with you for the first part of the day. And I sat there with him and watched him record his instruction with, you know, to his virtual students. And the topic was just so moving. I was in tears in there with this guy. I mean, that's it. I mean, he would be my poster child for the importance and the benefits of videos in the classroom.
Oh, you guys have just given me so many like chill bumps moments as you're sharing your experiences. So many innovative ideas and just ways to be thinking about how not just the item that we were thrust into a little bit, because I think, Kelly, you might have been the one to say it. I'm not sure which one of you did, but, you know, using video and recording ourselves, it's not a new concept. It's just trying to make it easier, better, more streamlined, not a burden, because you've made the point today very clear that classroom video use, it definitely is a game changer for K-12 classrooms, that there isn't just one way or there isn't just one reason to use it. I will share with everybody before we jump over into the Q&A portion that, you know, our focus at Cloud 12 has been, will continue to be to address and support the big issues, but while taking the complexity out of classroom video for teachers. You know, we really want, I think, Ms. Campbell, you said, to get out of our own way sometimes when we're teaching, and that's kind of what we want to do as far as the technology. We want the technology to not be in the instructional way. We want it to be an enhancement of the instructional abilities there, whether that be for professional learning growth, whether that's for student achievement, for distance learning, for blended learning, for these, hybrid times when we have half and half. I've heard so many innovative things lately. It's just been amazing. So I'm going to say thank you for our panelists' time. And Stephen, I think it's time. Do we have any Q&A that you would like to bring to the table for our panelists?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, Latoya, Stephanie, Kelly, and Julie. This was really a great conversation. I loved how you all worked off of each other's comments. It was really lively. So as you said, we do have some time for Q&A where Latoya, Stephanie, Kelly, Julie might be able to answer some of your questions you may have. So for those of you who have not yet submitted a question, you can please do so now. Just look for our Q&A panel, which should be located below the chat panel at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side. And hopefully we'll be able to get to all of your answers since we do have a few minutes before we get to the top of the hour. So first question, looks like this is for all three of you, Latoya, Stephanie, and Kelly. Are your teachers or department chairs, would they be willing to create videos for best practice libraries?
I think so.
I really see it as an incentivization of good practice. Teachers are not easy to elevate when they have something great going on because there is this subculture of not wanting to seem like you're being show-offy or a know-it-all or better than anybody else down the hallway. And so it's sometimes really hard to self-elevate because you want to kind of just fade into the crowd. You don't want to stand out. And in a way, I think this is something that is elevating good practice, but also I don't know many teachers that were like, oh, more work for me to do, So it's like, yes, you're elevating it, but you're asking them to do some things as well. So it feels like a safe way to shine a light on some good practice. It's sort of a balance of the two.
And as an admin, I think I walk a tightrope with that. Like Stephanie said, you do want to highlight those great teachers that offer those instructional practices that would benefit everybody in their department. And unfortunately, sometimes I just have to go pick those people. But once again, I think that's the perfect opportunity to grow the faculty. So I think having a best practices library would certainly benefit everyone.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, our teachers, they want to, like Stephanie said, it's kind of like they want to, but then sometimes some of them may be hesitant because they aren't sure about themselves, even though they're excellent teachers and we see excellent things. And I'm like, really? I mean, did you see your lesson? I mean, I was like you earlier, you just get caught up in their classrooms and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been here an hour. I was only supposed to be here 15 minutes. And you don't want to leave because it's just one of those phenomenal teachers. But I think if the longer we keep reiterating, yes, you're doing that because you're a model teacher. It's just good. It's just good teaching. It's something you do every day. It highlights their practices and it highlights them.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we have time for one more question. But if any of you would still like to submit your questions in the Q&A panel, you sure can. Hopefully, one of our panelists would be able to get back to you after this web seminar. So feel free to submit any of your questions, even if we can't answer them during this web seminar. So really quick, one last question before we get to the top of the hour. How do you help teachers become more comfortable watching and seeing themselves on video?
I'll jump in here and just say I think there's great power in a protocol. And I know that most administrators would agree, most teachers would agree, that you wouldn't release a student to practice reflection or to really even accomplish a task or an assignment or a project without a rubric, right? And so I don't think we need to categorize their time in reflection, but certainly a protocol. And I typically keep it really broad, 3, 2, 1. 3 things that you noticed that you're really proud of that you'd like to refine or to continue to do. 2 things that are questionable that you're not sure why you did them, or maybe you see a redundancy in the way that you're calling on someone or your general affect. And then 1 question that you have for someone else to look at in that video clip, right? So a simple 3-2-1 protocol can help them as they review it to just guide big ideas, big questions, getting to some refinement, but also making sure to highlight the positives.
Just to piggyback off Stephanie, I think modeling is so huge to me. Once again, I like to show teachers that I'm down there and I'm with them. So just to be able for me to be able to share with them my experiences, share videos with them. When I became an administrator, one of the major things I wanted to do was to never forget what it was like to be a classroom teacher. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to me to be able to go in and to co-teach and to coach. So I think that would be my method of getting teachers comfortable with this new process, would be modeling.
I agree. I mean, the more we show them that we're using it and how we do, that's how we start with a lot of our programs in the district when we start them out. You know, we implement by using, and we show them the better practices and the power of using it. And then they see it's not that hard task, that timely task. It's just, it becomes that seamless day-to-day, and the great things about it, how they can improve themselves. I mean, that's what I remind teachers. They can use this as not only as a self-reflection tool, but as part of their annual evaluation practices to pull things to showcase themselves. As administrators, we're not always in their room, 5 days a week, 8 hours every day. We're not in there all the time watching them for instruction, but they could pull great aha moments or those times that we're not there and say, hey, look at these from my video library. And that's going to help them. That's what I've tried to tell teachers, to boost their own brag folders, to use that for evaluation purposes and just for themselves, their practices, boost themselves.
Perfect. Thank you very much, all of you, for your time and expertise. So we are at the top of the hour, so this does conclude our web seminar today. But again, to all of our panelists, I appreciate your time and expertise. We appreciate it, and our audience especially. And of course, I would like to thank our attendees for joining us today. For those who enjoyed our presentation, there are definitely many more upcoming web seminars like this one that are provided by District Administration, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, and current issues in K-12. Our wide range of readers to DA, they subscribe for free to our magazine and stay up to date with us through our print magazine, like I mentioned, the digital edition of the magazine, our e-newsletters, and web seminars like this one. And for those of you who would like to watch this web seminar again, or if you have some colleagues who you think would really benefit from the solutions provided in this web seminar, you will be pleased to know that an archive recording of this web seminar will be available at the URL, which you can see on your screen. So you can also expect to receive an email from our team later today or early tomorrow, which will include a link to all of the slides. And so with that, on behalf of District Administration, this is Stephen Blackburn. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your school year. Take care. Thank you very much, and stay safe.